Welcome to Hairblazers, the podcast where seasoned salon owners and industry specialists share their knowledge. Our mission is to empower owners and elevate salons through conversation about what matters most to you. Welcome back. Today we have a very fun episode. We are going to be doing a bit of a deep dive with Colleen today. We are going to be picking your brain, learning more about your perspectives in the industry. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, sweet. Let's start with something saucy.
Okay.
So,
here we go. Okay.
So what is your unpopular opinion or hot take about the industry?
Oh, we're starting with this. Oh my goodness. The classic one that I'm thinking of right away is just like, you can't make money in this industry. And like so many people think that. It just kind of blows my mind actually when I think about it. A lot of people I think don't enter the industry because they think that there's no money to be made, which is like, it couldn't be more wrong. Like if you do well at what you do and you care and you work hard, like there's endless amounts of money that you can make. So yeah, I'd say my hot take right now is you can make a lot of money in this industry.
Absolutely. And there's so many different opportunities to do so. You don't just have to work behind the chair for 40 years. There are so many options, so many opportunities, and so many salons who are doing things well.
Agreed.
So let's start with your backstory. I've heard this more than once, but I don't
Don't be
I
too
feel like
bored.
I always ask you this for events and things, but our audience hasn't heard it before. So how did you get into this industry? What was your path into this industry?
Yeah, so I'll try to kind of bring it down, shorten it a little, but long story short, when I was in high school, I thought I had to be something, like whether it was a lawyer, a doctor, or I did love math. I was a mathlete, so I kind of thought for a while I might be an actuary. Side note.
Accounting is the worst and actuarial math is also the worst because I had to take those classes in university.
Did you?
Yeah, my aunt's an accountant. She was like, so do you think you're gonna become an accountant? And I was like, absolutely not.
Really?
I also was like, maybe I'll become an engineer. And I took one physics class and it was like, absolutely not.
No. Yeah, I was good at high school, and then in university, calculus, I had an A+, and everything else was kind of like mediocre. And I was like, I don't think I really like this. But while I was in university, I worked on Saturdays at a hair salon. And I loved it. But like never in my mind did I think, oh yeah, this is something that I could do. So anyways, I just worked on Saturdays. I took, I was in architecture. I did some sports psychology. I like tried out a whole bunch of different things. Ended up having like an early life crisis. I'll call it that. It wasn't that bad. But I decided I was going to go to Australia. So before I went to Australia, found out that Ben Moss Jewelers, this is kind of random, but Ben Moss Jewelers needed help in their shipping department. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go make some money at Ben Moss Jewelers. Then I'm going to go to Australia, and then I'll see what I want when I get back. So I left university, went to Australia, came back, stayed with Ben Moss, kind of worked my way up there. I ended up being a buyer for Ben Moss, which is a jewelry chain across Canada, or was. And I just didn't love it. I was like, it's a great career on paper, but I just don't love it. And I thought, if I could do something that I think I'd want to do every day and that would make me happy, what would that be? And I thought back to when I was in university and on Saturdays working at a hair salon. So when I was 24, I quit my job, sold my car. My mom, who everyone knows, Susan, took over my mortgage and paid my mortgage for me when I went back to hair school.
That is incredible. We love Susan.
Yes. Everybody loves Susan.
We should do an
My
episode.
sister. We should do an episode with Susan.
Just to bring Susan out here so
We
everyone
should.
else can know and love Susan as much as we do.
Absolutely. And Susan was very supportive. And so I went back and I've never regretted it since. That's how I got into it.
That's amazing. And you have an interesting path into the industry, but I think your career has evolved and developed in a very interesting way since then. So you've been in the industry for over 15 years. Yeah. So what has that kind of trajectory looked like for you so far? Because obviously there's still way more to do.
Yeah. So I was, again, thinking about this, I was quite lucky from when I first got into the hairstyling industry and right from school. So Roberto was talking about his family owning Capelli Academy. That ended up being the school that I went to. Did a lot of research, figured out, I think this is the best school. And that's where I ended up going. And that was really kind of the first look at what my career could look like. So when I was in school, we learned about a lot of things I think they weren't teaching in other salons, like personality types and like retailing or and educating your guests on products and just about the entire experience. So that's kind of how it started. After that, working at a salon where I was lucky enough that they were also big into education, I ended up becoming an educator for the product line that was carried there. And I learned a ton while I was working there. So I worked there as a commission stylist. So I went from, apprenticing to commission stylist. From there, I actually went and rented a chair for a little bit of time. You know, Thought it would be great, wasn't the right thing for me. And it wasn't just all the extra work that was involved, and it is a lot of extra work involved. But I really missed being in an environment where it was very, very team based, where everyone kind of had similar goals and similar ethic, like work ethic. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. It's just different.
Yeah, similar values where you're with people who get it and you're with people who get you. And I think that is why we're seeing such high vacancy rates now with booth rentals and with room rentals, because people want that team environment. They want to feel like they're part of something. They want to feel like there is opportunities for growth and development. And unfortunately, being on your own, it's very hard to get those
Yeah,
things.
it can be more of a challenge. And you really have to be self motivated. And not everyone, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but not everyone is that self motivated. So having the people around you that can kind of help get you there can be very helpful as well. But from there, I decided Roberto and I had been in touch for quite a while, and it just wasn't. He's like, "Do you want to come teach at Aveda?" At this point, he was the director at the Aveda Institute after they bought Capelli Academy from his family. And I was like, it's not the right time. I'm educating for another product line right now. Maybe we'll keep in touch. Maybe something will happen in the future. And it kind of just worked out at the right time where Roberto and I met up, and I was ready to like do something different. And like I had been in all these different environments, and not that they were bad, but I knew what I wanted environment to be about. And I knew that I wanted to be in charge of like making sure that's the way it was. Wasn't leaving it to chance, wasn't leaving it to somebody else. And Roberta was kind of in the same place. So we decided that eventually we wanted to open up a salon. We had similar values and plans. And so I ended up teaching at the Aveda Institute for about a year and a bit. Amazing experience, learned a ton about Aveda, and then got to share that with the students as well. Yeah, and then from there, Roberta and I went and opened up Verde just over 7 years ago, the first one. And that was just that in itself, like just Verde alone feels like a whole nother career just from where we started 7 years ago to where we're at now. But it's the greatest thing I did in my career so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny thinking back to, I joined Verde over 5 years ago now. Even when I started to now, it feels like a completely
Yeah.
different playing field than it did back then. And I totally understand what you're saying when you feel like it's a whole new career. It's like it's a whole new lifetime. So,
Yes, it's like a whole new lifetime. And like I'm not saying that I thought I knew everything when I started, because I didn't. But like if I could look ahead 7 years from then and see everything that we've accomplished now, like I think I would be terrified, because I think it'd be like, how is it even possible to get to that from where we're at right now? It can just be so overwhelming. So luckily we just kind of, trucked away and had patience. And here we are now.
it
And
was one day at a
it
time.
was. It was one day at a time, one guest at a time.
Absolutely. So you have learned so much in that process.
Mhm.
What are some key moments or key perspective changes that you can point to and say, this was, a key stepping stone in my career? I think I probably know
Mm.
or could guess one already, because I think the first conversation I had with you, you were like, have you read The Customer Service Revolution?
Oh, yeah, that's a good I was like, I don't wanna get this question wrong, or I don't wanna, like, after look back and be like, "Oh, I wish I would've said something different." That's one for sure. Um, Reading like, the first book I read was Secret Service, which was a John DeJulius book. He owns, the DeJulius Group, and it's amazing people at this group. But it really shows, like, it's all about experience. And I knew I wanted to be part of, like, a higher end salon, and I'm like, "Okay, so what value are we gonna bring to our guests to make them say, you know what? It is worth it to me. I value, what I get here, and I'm willing to pay more for this experience." And it came down to the experience. And, I had like all the pages like dog-eared in like this book, because I'm thinking, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I think that's what really got me started into that mindset of thinking, what can we do to make this experience better? What can we do to get people talking and like becoming our like raving fans so other people want to experience it as well? Thank you for sharing that. That was definitely a moment in time where I realized like, this is what we need to do.
Absolutely. Any other pieces of learning or perspective changes that you've had in the last 7 years that you kind of like to nod to?
Perspective changes, I would say maybe it would be even helping other people have perspective changes. One of the biggest growth challenges that I found throughout when we started, where it felt like a family, right? In the beginning, when there's very few of you, you have a really small, tight knit group. Growing, becoming bigger as a company was so difficult. And like I learned to like work with change, but really helping the rest of like the team manage change and how to deal with that and grow with it. I think that was one of the hardest perspective changes for people to make was like just because we're not going to be this little close tight knit family doesn't mean there's not other amazing things to come, even though it might not look the same. So I would say that was a big change.
Yeah, and that was a really big shift. And I think that you have to be a different leader when you're leading a team of, 30 people versus when you're leading a team of 5 people and you're super tight
Yes.
and super connected
Yes.
and you're staying after work to have a glass of wine and that's
Every
every
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, it's a very different environment and it's a very different experience. And I understand still feeling like nostalgic for that
Yes.
sometimes because it's nice, but I think that what we have now and being able to give that to so many more people,
Yes.
being able to include so many more people in
Yes.
that, like that is so worth it and so valuable.
And it becomes like your new norm until like the next thing changes.
Yes.
So it's like it's not compounding changes. It's more of like you just figure it out and then you're like, okay, I'm ready for this next change. That last change we had, look, I managed to get through it. I'm still alive. I'm still doing okay. Business is doing okay. I'm gonna be okay the next time around.
Yeah, and me and Rob were actually talking about this last week that if you look back on the challenges that you had
Mhm.
in the beginning of any
Mhm.
journey, those challenges at the beginning seem small
They
compared
do.
to the things that you have to navigate now, which are more complex.
Mhm.
But you needed those smaller challenges to come and feel
Mhm.
really horrible and feel really challenging and feel
Mhm.
really hard because it builds your resilience.
It does.
It builds your ability to navigate those things in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of like just one example because this comes up, if I'm like in a salon and I remember, oh, I just need to talk to like Rachel or I'm saying Rachel, but she's not necessarily feeling this way, but I'll say, Rachel, can I chat with you for a second? And like the look of fear and like panic on people's faces when you say that, like, how would I say that to not feel that way? But I felt that way too. And like, I'm thinking of things that, maybe affect you in the beginning that as you grow and learn don't affect you anymore. If Roberto says to me, Colleen, we need to chat about something, can we chat tomorrow? I'm not like, oh no, we need to chat. It's like you just build up this, oh yeah, he said that many times before and it ended up being just fine. So like we're good. But you need to go through that in order to build that resilience, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. So for you, right now, a lot of what you do is really being a leader, supporting our team, supporting our stylists, supporting their growth. So for you at this point in your career, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
I think it's similar listening to Roberto talk as well. I think it's similar to his as well. And it's watching people grow. So that would be like my absolute number one, seeing people, come in. When I was teaching at the school, seeing them from when they couldn't hold a pair of shears till the end when they were doing these beautiful haircuts. But now coming into the salon and, being nervous or, doing their very first haircut guest in the salon to seeing like them thrive and how quickly that can happen by the way that we've worked like our program and our
It's
education and
incredible.
it is incredible. And yes, we'll take some credit for it, but not all the credit. Like these people and these stylists, these young people in many cases are just doing unbelievable things. And to see one of our stylists, I'm like, she's gonna have my job next year. This is like what I was thinking. And then I'm
And
like,
she's
how
like
old are
fresh
you?
out of school. Yeah,
How old are you?
exactly.
It's quite unbelievable. So I know a lot of times people give our new generation a hard time, but I see wonderful things with them right now.
Yeah, and I think it's two sides to that, you know? You have to hire the right people. You have to hire the
Yes.
people who are excited to learn, willing
Yes.
to learn, on board with what you're doing. And you also, on the other side, have to provide the leadership and the structure and model what
Mhm.
growth looks like for them. So I think that we're at a stage in our business where we've gotten both of those things right, and
Mhm.
we're seeing the results with the, incredible up and coming young people in our business.
Yeah, and that would be, like, another rewarding thing is just seeing how quickly, how quickly they grow.
So on the flip side, obviously there's a lot of challenges that
Mhm.
we've had to work through to get here,
Mhm.
but what's the most challenging thing about what you do now?
Mhm. So they say that you can't want something for someone more than they want it for themselves.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like, I know that, but for some reason, like, my heart still, like, grasps onto that maybe it can or maybe I can. That is the most challenging thing, and I think for a lot of leaders, the most challenging thing is seeing the potential in people and knowing, like, what could be, and then having to say, "You know what? Like, maybe this just isn't their path," and being okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's so challenging, like both as a leader and also in your personal life. We have this idea that we can change people, or through our actions we can make other people have different action,
Mhm.
and in reality, we can only do what we can do, and at the
Mhm.
end of the day, other people are responsible for their own actions, they're responsible for their mindset, they're responsible for what they are bringing to the table and what they're doing with it.
Mhm.
So I I totally understand how emotionally it can be so hard seeing somebody else have so much potential and giving them the tools and resources
Mhm.
and not seeing them fulfill that potential. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard, but I mean, in the end, that's okay. And I think one of the other challenges that I've really been learning to overcome is like, don't force things. Like, just don't force
Mm,
things. Like, figure out what people's strengths are, which are in many cases what they enjoy and what they're good at, and then go with that. Like, figure it out. So before it would be like, I would really try hard to like, if it's not working, let's make it work. But sometimes it's like, well, let's just not do it that way, or let's
yeah.
get somebody else to do it. So that's been a challenge that I've definitely been working to overcome, and I think we're all doing a pretty good job with it.
Yeah. If there's any knowledge that you've gained in the last few years that you'd like to share with salon owners, what would that be?
I would say one positive thing about the fact that a lot of salon owners also work behind the chair. There's not a ton of them, but one positive for sure is that they understand what it's like being a stylist, and I think that is really, really important.
Absolutely.
So, that's something that's really helped me, and that's helped my relationship, with Roberto as far as running and owning the salons, is he doesn't have that background. I do have that background, so there's, like, unique perspectives that come from that, and so having that perspective and not forgetting how you felt as a stylist. Or I always think
Yes.
back to when you maybe were a stylist somewhere else, not even in your own business. How did you feel about things? What were your perspectives? As an owner, it's easy to get into like the mindset of like, oh, they just think we're out to get them and they just want all this money and they don't realize how much it costs to run a business. And it's like, yeah, maybe they don't. Maybe they do.
And if
But
they don't know, you can share that with them.
you absolutely can share with them. And so I would think my advice to the owners would be just not forgetting to think about other perspectives other than your own and not taking things personally. I think a lot of owners really, it's easy to take personally. And I get it. It's your baby. Your business is your baby. You want it to thrive and you want people to enjoy being there. And if there's any sort of conflict or somebody's unhappy, it's easy to take it personally. But don't take it personally. I'd say go with the facts and share and be more transparent with your team. I think being transparent, and we've talked about this in other episodes, is one of the most important things.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of that, being somebody who does work with our new talent, who develops our team, what advice would you give to somebody who's entering the industry?
Oh my goodness.
So much advice.
So much advice, but like number 1 would be you're in the right place at the right time. So don't let all these other thoughts of being like, "Oh, is this what I want to do? Is this what I should be doing?" I mean, hair school is not inexpensive, and I think some people might panic when they get it thinking, "Oh, what if I just waste it and I don't do it?" It's like it's never a waste. So just like get into it, know that you're in the right place, no matter what you end up doing in the rest of your life. Be that. The second thing is be patient. You need to be patient, especially if you're in the right salon, which sounds interesting, but I would say don't just automatically go work at the first salon that offers you the most amount of money to start, because that's in many cases that's not the place that you're going to end up thriving the most. Um, yeah, don't think short term, think long term, and really figure out what you want out of your career, and then interview salons to find out if that's something that you can get there.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing that I see is a lot of students just looking at, oh, what salon looks good on Instagram,
Yeah.
instead of going in and asking the questions and finding out what opportunities there are, finding out what growth there is, finding out if there's areas they can pursue beyond just working behind the chair, finding out really if they can get what they want long term out of that career. Because if you're in a salon and you're like, this isn't actually the right salon for me, you can definitely move, but it is way easier to start at the salon that is the right fit for you and can help you reach those goals.
Absolutely.
What's one thing that you foresee in the next like 5, 10 years in our
Mm.
industry?
I see there being less salons. This is just like my hunch. I don't know. This is random. And it just came out and I hadn't really thought about it before. But I think there's going to be like the salons that are doing it right and know how to give the right experience are in many cases going to grow and going to thrive. And I think, unfortunately, people that aren't ready to like move the times, technology, like that's a huge one. Technology is going to take over in the future, and you really need to stay on top of that. And if you don't, and you kind of stay in your old ways, I think a lot of those salons aren't necessarily going to make it. So I think um, we've seen a huge increase in like expectations from guests to salons and to stylists, which is not a bad thing. But I think that's just going to grow from here. And again, people are like spending their money very specifically, and if they're going to spend their money with you, they expect a certain level of service. And so I think that a lot of salons that are doing the right things are going to grow, and maybe, ones that are falling behind might just drop off.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's something we're actually already starting to see. So, keeping that in mind, what will be some of the most important things for salons to focus on? You named a couple: experience,
Yeah.
technology. Are there any others?
Experience, number one, and technology as well. Things for salons to focus on, and just like growing your team and finding out what is important to the members on your team. It's not losing sight of like the people themselves. Like everyone is their own person, obviously, and they all have their own dreams and their own hopes. So you need to make sure you tap into that and not look past it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another component that you mentioned is growing your team.
Mm.
I think that this is something that a lot of salon owners are neglecting until they're at a point where they're like, oh, I absolutely need to hire somebody and there's no other option,
Mhm.
or somebody leaves, or I'm in like a very SOS kind of situation. And I think that planning ahead, intentionally growing and developing your team is going to be a huge component. You're never going to have a senior stylist that just walks
Mhm.
up to your door one day and says, I want to work for you. I'm totally good with every single way you do everything at your
Mhm.
business. I'm familiar with your color line. I am a perfect culture fit. I am exactly happy with the exact level that you want to put me at based on price point and
Mhm.
experience. Every salon operates so differently. Even if you get another senior stylist from another salon, you are going to have to retrain them in so many ways.
Yeah.
It is unrealistic to just expect, a licensed stylist to just be dropped on your doorstep the second you need to hire. You need to go out, you need to be proactive.
Yes. There's a hot take. The amount of salons I see that do not hire new talent blows my mind. And like, I do get it because it takes a lot of money and energy and resources to train them. But like, these are people that are coming to work with you that you can help like grow into being like an amazing fit for your culture. Yeah, to just want that quick, again, it's long term, right? It's like the quick satisfaction of bringing somebody in that already has to see this, bring someone in that has a clientele. I'm sorry, I'm getting so flustered just thinking about this. But the idea when I see salons or salon owners looking for new stylists, and one of the requirements is has their own clientele, just like that is the worst thing you could possibly do. That's like quick money. very obviously you're just looking for a quick buck. It's like for us, even if we're bringing a senior stylist over, it's like, we don't expect you to bring all your guests. Like, we know what we're doing. Like, we have that covered. Obviously, it'd be great if some guests came with you. And the other part is like, they're terrified of not making enough money. Not only do we bring them over and help build their books, but we're also going to guarantee a certain wage just so it's less scary to come over. So it's like just thinking completely different.
Yeah, and thinking long term.
Yes.
And what is your salon going to look like in 10, 15 years when you've hired no new talent
Yes.
and all of your stylists and the owner have aged 10, 15 years
Yes.
and people start wanting to retire and there's nobody else up and coming? Your business is going to crumble.
Yeah.
You have to think towards the future if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Yes. Second one is bringing on new talent and just having them assist and fold towels and wash hair. And like, I get that there's part of the whole paying your dues. I get that that's part of the job, but to me, if your new talent is not starting on guests behind the chair within like a month, how do you expect them to keep
their skills?
How do you expect them to? Yeah, and to just keep that love of the industry. So I think that is so important to have new talent working behind the chair as quickly as possible once they get into your salon.
Yeah, and it's like you do need people to do laundry. You do need people to wash out the senior stylist guests. You do need people to answer the phone. That is completely true. But if you hire new talent and you have them doing that for 2 years, one, they're not generating any additional revenue for your business. And two, they're probably going to leave because you're not letting them take guests.
It's true.
Last thing, Colleen. We've talked a lot in these interviews about legacy. What impact do you want to have on this industry?
I've seen a huge shift in perspectives of like the stereotype of a hairstylist. I've seen a shift from even when I came into the industry 15 years ago. Before that, it's a whole nother story. But, by the time I leave this industry when I'm 100, hopefully, I want it to be looked at as something super positive, something that people that become hairstylists, like they're smart to be doing that. And I know it seems like we have a ways to go. But that's what I want to see. Like when I leave, I want it to be like, yeah, this is an amazing career. When you hear somebody wants to be a hairstylist, yes, our parents are proud. Like, no, don't be a doctor, be a hairstylist. Like that's what it's.
I love that. That's amazing.
Don't be a doctor, be a hairstylist. And like that's what I want to hear. You're in school for less amount of time and like you get to enjoy your career. I'm sure a lot of doctors enjoy their careers, but like as a hairstylist, you get to make people feel amazing. Like there's nothing better.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for sharing of yourself and all of your skills and your wisdom with us today. I'm sure our audience enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. Leave us a review, share this episode with your team, and make sure you tune in for the next one. We appreciate you.